What's today's topic?
Forget about mitts. Let's hate on
Yeah,
this refs.
refs the shit. How do you know his name?
No, what's that over there?
Yeah,
Knocking us out.
No, like, do not say that. Bang.
Ooh, bang.
Red mate.
Red mate.
This is Ant.
Hey Chris, what's today's topic?
Today we are discussing the myths associated with refereeing.
The myths kind of include stereotypes around the refs, certain patterns that are occurring. Yeah, we'll just run through a few today and we'll see if we kind of agree or let us know if you think these are true. I guess an example of one, the first one we'll touch on is you can't get booked in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's a classic one. I think players always looking to lay in a good challenge, put the marker in early and things like that. Just this kind of understanding that the refs are going to let things slide in the initial part of the game. I think as far as the rules go, though, that's completely untrue. But you do tend to see it happen. Yeah. It's one of those weird ones where there is no rule around that at all, but it definitely happens.
You definitely see a few big challenges or... Because it's so early... I think in the ref's mind, he doesn't want to get his cards out too early. I think he doesn't want like either a reputation of being too trigger happy with the cards, or in his head he's like, oh, I don't want to book every foul. So unless it is some like blatant card, I mean, you do just, I guess, rarely see it. But yeah, the players are told like, you know, let them know you're there early, put in a big first challenge, and you kind of rarely get punished for it. It's kind of like repeat offences. Or maybe once you're kind of into the game, you will start to see a card. But that's definitely one that you see happen. That's definitely a myth.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely a big time myth.
Another myth is like the best officials will manage a game.
Yeah, big time. I think you always hear that in like the best officials allow the game to breathe, or they're in control of what happens. This is a bit of a difficult one because I think to some extent it's definitely true because you can tell a good ref versus a bad ref. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like the players are gonna determine what happens in a game.
Well, I've seen Mike Dean mention that he's like really pleased with himself after a certain performance, especially if he's played an advantage and then the team has gone and scored a goal or something has happened that, you know, a different ref might have stopped it or made a different call and there's a different outcome. He's definitely mentioned at times, oh yeah, I'm really pleased with myself because of the way I refereed that situation. A certain event occurred. You certainly see when you're like, okay, the refs like lost control of the game. Either like I just said, like they get a bit too trigger happy and everything's getting booked, or maybe there's one tackle that got put in that didn't get booked, and now like everything's escalated. Now you know tackles getting put in and whatnot are up here when really had he kind of booked it, he would have like set a marker down. And everyone kind of knows, oh, okay, this is allowed, this is not allowed. That's probably a big one in terms of, you know, a good ref versus a bad ref.
Oh, definitely. I think it's definitely a fair myth, to be honest. I've definitely been on the receiving end of some absolutely shocking refereeing performances where you are like, this game is just about you. You just want to make everyone know that you're in charge, you've got the whistle, come back here, do all this and that. And just like, this game is definitely centered around you and you're trying to control this game. And I think, for me, the best refs just keep it short, sharp and simple. Occasionally will sometimes chat to the players, so they're also managing a game on the other sense. So, yeah, I think that's probably
do you mean like the ref's got a bit of an ego?
Or like hard time. I think maybe here in Perth we've got a few refs that definitely have that ego side of it.
Or like a power trip.
A power trip hardcore where...
just make a decision for the sake of it.
And I always say, like, they were probably always the kid that was picked last for all of the teams at school. And nobody ever wanted them on their team. And they've almost got that chip on their shoulder. That's the way I definitely feel anyway. And they're like, this is my chance to make it back. And I'm in control of this game. It's just like, yeah, but now you've spoiled the day for everyone else. Of like, both teams are literally just wound up because of the ref. So I guess it's almost on the flip side that, yeah, good refs will manage the game, but I think poor refs have such an inability to manage the game where just, you know, the slightest niggle booking or just things like that.
Maybe you know, if they are a referee and they've spent years doing it, they've had to wear a cost of a lack of playing. They've not got the game experience where you notice like when a referee makes a decision and you kind of think, oh, you know, had you had a bit more experience playing,
yeah, definitely,
you would see this different way, or, you know, this happens all the time, that's fair, or yeah, there's just certain calls that kind of get made when there's a foul and they might give it the wrong way, or if there's a 50-50 and you kind of think, you know, I've been in that situation before as a player and you kind of know, yep, I'm in the wrong, or you go, this guy's definitely been the one to hack me out. And the referee gives it the other way, and you kind of think, oh, okay, there's just times like that where you notice an inability. Or like
I think you've hit the nail on the head with that one. I think you can tell the refs that have played and the refs that haven't played, because as you say, I think 90% of the calls fall in that category of just like, if it's for my team or against my team, I'll have my bias that's inset, and then the opposition will have their bias. But there is those 10% of the calls where between you or the opposition probably like, that was never a foul, or like, oh, we've gotten away with one there.
Yeah.
Where both teams are in complete agreement, and it comes down to that ref's inability or lack of playing time and their on-field practice, which translates into refereeing.
Like even like your team will get a free kick, and you almost kind of like laugh with the other team. You're like,
that wasn't one. Like we got lucky there.
Yeah, and then they'll do it vice versa. They're kind of like looking like, oh, we got lucky there.
Yeah. And I think
everyone knows it's not a foul except the ref.
Yes, except the ref. And I most of the time put it down to, they haven't played. That's why they're refereeing.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're slagging off refs all of a sudden. But I think bringing it back to topic then.
Forget about mitts. Let's hate on the refs.
Refs are shit. Like a good ref, I think, to a degree, can promote a good game and can force a bad game. I don't want to say the word manage, because I'm a big believer in the players and obviously the coaches have the most impact, and the refs not determined. But they are determining a large percentage of the outcome of what the game looks like and feels like.
I think a game can go in a certain direction, and then they can put like roadblocks down, and then 100%. It's like, oh, okay, now it needs to kind of go this way. Oh, no, refs just call that out. Whereas, like I said, if there's a big challenge that doesn't get blown or whatever, then it's like, oh, okay, the level's here. Oh, okay, that's fine now. Let's go here, and then it's going to always escalate until the ref makes a decision. That's like, oh, okay, let's bring it back down. Yeah. Same when like there's fights or there's other little dramas and things are escalating. That's what I would assume is like managed.
Probably goes back to one of the Sunday League, like some of the things you hear. I think that is a classic Sunday League shout of like, ref, you've got to get a hold of this game, or ref, you've got to get on top of this one. Because a lot of the time, if the refs are calling it too much or they're not calling it enough, the game just escalates and tempers start going.
It is so hard, like comparing it to like a Premier League where they've got their own official linesman.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the ref's only got like one angle. You know, these days they've got the VAR, which we can touch on later, but he's only going to see what he can. And then, you know, a Sunday League as well, they're not the fittest. They're not always up with the game. They're looking like, oh, what's that over there? Knocking us out. All right, so another myth, home field advantage.
Yeah, I'd probably say this is what you'd say is mostly in that like professional and sort of elite level football. Obviously not so much where there's not many home fans or home spectators. I would say it might occasionally creep into Sunday League, whereby there might be a ref who lives just down from a pitch and he always refs those teams or those players. I mean, you've probably heard it 1,000 times where the ref's like, hey, Jimmy, like, don't be doing it. And you're like, how do you know his name?
When they start using the names, and you're like, are you from there?
Yeah. Like, how does this happen?
Yeah.
So, like, that's probably the only time...
Or they're talking another language
with that player. Like,
are you guys related? Come on.
So that'd be the only time, I guess, in that level where it'd creep in. But for the most part, this is definitely a myth that seems to have something in it, because you would say that, you know, at Old Trafford, Anfield, or, you know, some of these bigger grounds, the bigger teams always get the calls. I mean, how many managers have played against Liverpool and we've had a call go and they're just like, oh, because it was at Anfield, like, of course we weren't going to get anything and things like that. So whilst you would say it shouldn't happen, it does seem to occur even at that top level.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I know it's at an elite level, but the referee's only human at the end of the day. If they're thinking in their head, oh, this is a 50-50 decision, like, oh, I could go either way on this, and then there's like 50, 60,000 people all screaming one way, you know, you're only naturally going to maybe lean towards it. It'd be interesting to look at like the statistics during the COVID season where there was no home fans, and see maybe how many home penalties were given versus a normal season. But I would definitely think that all humans are going to be influenced by a home crowd. You even see like players and how they perform. A team will play differently at home. They're full of confidence.
Yeah,
it's only going to be more exaggerated when you're just one person. Even as I guess you got your linesman as a ref, but they're doing very different roles. They're not making the decision for you, or you're not making it together. They might say, "Oh yeah, I kind of saw this," and provide some kind of insight. But at a lower level, if you go down to a Sunday League, there's less of a crowd, and like you said, some refs might feel quite empowered in that situation.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think if you're at a more professional level, you've got a stadium full, there has to be some home kind of
most
advantage.
Definitely.
All right, another myth is evening out calls. So if the ref has made one decision and he's in the back of his head, he's like, maybe that wasn't right, he'll now go against it. And do you reckon the ref is playing a 50-50 game with himself? Okay, give this team X amount of fouls, this team X amount of fouls, or maybe this is a big foul, we need to throw a few more this way.
Yeah, I don't think any ref has ever gone in being like, I'm going to make today a 50-50 game in terms of decisions. But I think you'd be hard pushed to find a ref that hasn't been like, I think I may have made a mistake and I need to somehow make up for that mistake. Because at the end of the day, the refs are not perfect. They are going to make mistakes. And most of them should hold their hands up for the ones they do make. And there is that element of human nature of where we want to kind of right that wrong. And that, unfortunately, could come into managing. Like, I know I have been on a pitch when a ref has been like, when there's been a penalty and they're like, yeah, but I gave them one as well.
I've heard that said.
And you're just like, no, like, do not say that.
They're trying to clean their conscience.
Yes.
You're like, please don't punish me and my team for a mistake. Like, I think everyone would just rather you just like, okay, you've made a bad call there. Let's just make good calls. Whereas they're like, oh no, one for them, one for you. It's now even. Because in their head, they probably think it's unfair. And as a referee, you need to keep it fair to some degree, or at least the rules of the playing field.
Yeah. So whilst that is definitely like a huge myth that you almost shouldn't exist, I think it would be impossible bringing that human element into it for it not to happen.
Well, I've heard that the referees say it, so I'm like, is it a myth? Like, or does it definitely happen? But even if it's not as like if it's unspoken, you will see, especially a big call like a penalty decision. You know, in Sunday League, you know, you might get like someone flagging offside, and they might overrule it, or vice versa, where they don't flag it and they might give offside, or something where there's a goal involved and there's something like there's a big occasion. Now they're like, oh, okay, I need to kind of get these up, throw a few free kicks here and there.
Yeah. As you say, it might be one big call and like a few or multiple little small calls. They're like, okay, I've evened that out across the board now. Like,
I mean, he's probably not conscious of it doing it in their head, but it certainly feels like that. And especially if there's a huge like, no way, ref, and there's that big kind of controversy on the pitch, and then all of a sudden, you'll start to notice it throughout the game then.
Yeah.
Another myth, I guess this one is similar to like the home team advantage, but this is now the losing team. Will the ref be a bit more generous to them? Or on the flip side, vice versa, if there's a team winning, will the ref be a bit more harsh to them? So again, I guess they're kind of evening it out, cross with trying to like favour a team to try make it a fair. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I think that is probably always going to happen as well. It would come under that myth category that shouldn't happen.
Like if the team's up 3-0,
you're always going to prefer the underdog story, aren't you? You're going to be like, we'll just give it to him. And I think it's frustrating a lot of the time if you're winning or doing so well. You know, you always catch it like, but you're winning. It's just like, yeah, but that's the point. Like, we're playing here to try and win. Don't penalise us for doing what we're meant to be doing. And I know I've been on the receiving end of that probably both ways.
Yeah.
And it is infuriating. So I think that definitely happens all the time.
Yeah, so if say a team's up like 3-0 and then, you know, this is a penalty shout that's like a 50-50, the ref can easily just go, oh, no, not this time, they're up 3-0. Whereas down the other end, where the team is losing 3-0, and then they're like, oh, ref, that's a pen. They're like, the ref subconsciously can think, you know, I could give this team a pen. It's probably not going to influence the result here, and it might just kind of make this team happy, and it's an easier decision to make. If a game's 0-0, it's 90th minute, giving a team a pen is a huge decision to make for a ref versus a team that's comfortably winning. Yeah, I think you would probably see that, especially because if a game finishes 3-0 versus a 3-1, you're quickly going to forget about that decision as well if they've given something that cost you that one goal.
Yeah. Well, I think I've actually been playing in a state league game where it was 4-0, we were winning, and then the opposition had used their 3 subs at the time, and then another player had got injured, so they allowed one of their previous subs who'd gone off to come back on, and it was like 88 minutes, and the ref was just like, yeah, but you're winning 4-0 anyway, like it's...
And there's like 2
and
minutes
it's just
to
like,
go.
this is a decent standard. Just because there's 2 minutes to go and we're 4-0 up doesn't mean the rules change, like... So I think it definitely does occur where they're just like, oh, it's fine. It's just like, well, if we're going to change that rule, I'll just start picking the ball up then and just throw it in the goal. Because where's this line of the rules getting changed?
And if it was the other way around, where if you're at 4-0 and one of your players went down injured, he would have been like, oh, tough luck.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, again, calling out maybe out poor refereeing, which is what we're not trying to do, but yeah, I think it definitely happens across multiple levels.
No, I think it's easier for a ref to give a decision in those situations and in a tight game. So it makes sense that naturally they're like, oh yeah, I can give this guy a free kick. That won't really impact the game, or no one's going to get my back for this. Or you're just kind of favouring like the little guy, really. I guess that kind of wraps up all the myths. Is there anything that you think the new technology we have now in the Premier League and in world football, we've got VAR? Is there any?
Yeah, that's a good shout actually, because I think VAR is probably something now where maybe it's absolving referees of some blame, but also adding blame to referees where they may not have got it before. Like it's kind of a bit of both ways. I think we're seeing it more and more, obviously in sort of the higher level football, where referees are scared to make a decision in case it gets overruled, or will just be like, oh, I'll just leave this a little while longer until I get, the whisper in me saying, hey, you might need to check this over. Yeah, I don't know what you kind of think on that one.
Yeah, well, like you said, they're probably hesitant to make a call, even these days where there's a penalty. And previously they had to on the spot, almost before the ball goes out or whatever. They've got to run their head real quick. Is this a pen? Yes or no? Whereas now they can be like, oh, cool, well, I'll let the game play on. Someone upstairs is going to be like, hey, it could be a pen.
Yeah, might
let's
look
have
at
a look.
it. Yeah.
And then they've got a bit more time. All this is so many more seconds. Like compared to where they used to have to make it within 2 or 3 seconds.
Yes,
They've now got like minutes. Then they can go and look at the screen. They can see it a few more times. So already what they thought they saw, they're now seeing a different angle. They're seeing it in slow-mo. Yeah, they're definitely hesitant to make decisions. I think it's a big safety net for them.
But I guess that almost comes back then to one of our earlier points about managing a game. Because if you're letting these calls continuously go, the game becomes a different sort of game where it can become quite aggressive or snappy, where people are like, oh, well, I'll just go in for big challenges if they're going to let the game breathe a little bit more, versus previously where the refs might have been on the calls. So I think potentially that could be a way to manage the game as well, by making decisions early or letting them go as needed. That classic one of like, get the yellow card out early to diffuse the situation. Same thing here, like, oh, hopefully VAR might have my back. I might let the game breathe, or I might call this now so as it doesn't come back.
Yeah, well, it's all that thing about letting the game naturally progress, and then, I can go look at the screen a bit later on and I can pull it back if needed. If not, it's all happened as it should. Yeah, so it really saves them. Is there any VAR myths? I was going to say, I don't know if this is a myth or there probably is a stat, but every time the ref goes over to the screen, he will give the penalty.
Yes, that is a big one. Yeah, I'd love to see the stats on that, because I'm sure it must be pretty high.
Yeah.
Anytime they've gone over, they're not really going to overrule themselves. Or
the decision has been overturned, whatever it is. Yes. Even like a red card, the ref's not given it.
Yeah.
Go to the screen, given it.
But almost in that, you're getting called to say, hey, you might want to look at this, almost indicating, hey, you did make a mistake. Yeah. Think about changing it, or think about...
As well as in that room, it's not just one person. I think there might be a team of refs in there.
Yes.
And if you're on the pitch watching it live as it's happening, and then you've got a team of people saying, hey, we've just watched this back a few times, it might be worth looking at. It's basically them saying to you, we all think it's a penalty.
Yeah.
Or whatever the decision is, go have a look. So if he goes over that screen and goes, oh, you know what, I'm sticking with my initial decision I made in a split second, and I'm going against all you guys up there who have watched it. Again, like going back to human nature, that is such a brave move to make. And I guess a ref's mainly in that situation, whether it be pressure or whatever, kind of go, oh yeah, I guess I did make a mistake. But yeah, I think surely the decision gets over. It almost seems that way. Whenever you're watching it and then they're like, oh, yeah, they've notified him to go over, and he goes over. You're just like, he's
going to go. Yeah.
When do they ever walk away and go, no, sorry guys, that was a waste of time. I wish I didn't watch it. Yeah. Once was enough. I saw it live.
Yeah, I think even talking about seeing things live is probably the slow-mo replays. I think you watch anything in slow motion and it looks a million times worse, and you can kind of pick and choose the narrative you want from a slow-mo replay, whereas that's not always the case in real time as it happens.
Yeah, sometimes I think the real time is actually a better perspective of what happens.
Yeah.
Especially if you see like, the player's going for the ball here, or it's just a bit more natural to see him come through rather than slow-mo. The ball's long gone and all you see is this player just going in still, and you're in your head you're like, The ball was gone like 20 seconds
There you
ago.
go. Yes.
But
yeah.
that's because it's in slow motion.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to wrap up, I would think that it definitely seems to be overturned all the time.
Yeah.
That's a VAR myth for you.
Yeah. There you go. Alrighty, so that was some of our refereeing myths, some things that we see maybe popping up here and there. Let us know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, get involved. And anything else to add with that one?
Yeah, just let us know if you've got any of your own refereeing myths or anything else that you might have seen as well on the pitch. That's all from me.
Brilliant. Until next time.
Red mate. Thanks, guys.
Red mate.